Well, for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the political science professor and specialist in regional and international security, Dr. Ahmed Shahat. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Let me here start by asking you, how do you assess coordination between Cairo and Paris, particularly in balancing diplomacy with humanitarian priorities in the Gaza crisis?
In the beginning, after greeting Suna, I think that the Egypt is trying to maintain the state of negotiation and not to giving up the idea of failing the negotiation at this point, and recalling as always that the roles either from Europe or in the region in a bid to reactivate the role of mediations between particularly Egypt and Qatar and other countries that are adopting such a status in reaching to the peace and ending the war effectively, away of other complexities imposed by Israel. The idea of recalling European role, such as France, in order to mobilizing the international community in order to put a decisive line on such a period that is about reaching 2 years by using the weapon of starvation and breaching to all the international norms and conventions that affect largely in the framework of the international order. So the same thing goes by the Egyptian state in its intent in abolishing such schemes in a larger scale, imposing an occupation status and executing its Israel's schemes through the deploying the military presence and continuation the starvation weapons and imposing a reality for the inhabitants, fostering its idea of the forced displacement. Most notably, that the United States has put itself in the equation by Israel, not in the role of the sponsor or mediator. Such a thing that weakened at larger scale in reaching to a solution. And it says clearly that there is no Israeli American desire in reaching a real agreement. In the equation of negotiations, the strongest role that has its presence on the ground, that it is capable to impose the reality. But bearing Hamas the responsibility of failing the negotiation that is repeatedly showed in several stations of negotiation. But it is confirmed that there is no real desire by the United States and Israel in reaching a real solution, but given a very formal shape in it to execute the schemes of Israel.
Right. From your point of view, to which extent has Egypt been instrumental in maintaining the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, particularly through the Zakim and Abu Kerm or Kerm Abu Salem crossings?
The Egyptian state is mobilizing in such a very critical moment with the cooperation with the mediators and the effective European roles in order to give a momentum to give an end to the exacerbation of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which is the bid of delivering the aids in a disciplined manner in order to have the people of Gaza to reach, and even it is costly, or opening a number of load load trucks, as we've seen in the past 3 days through Sikkim or Karim Abu Salim's crossing in order to minimize the crisis. It is a very important role in order to reach such equation, and using the international rejection of using the hunger as a weapon that would trigger the international community in particular that has a very sensitivity within the people, either in the level of the region or internationally.
Right. With rising reports of hunger-related fatalities, how critical is this latest round of aid in curbing the risk of famine in Gaza?
Absolutely. What we are seeing in Gaza is very shameful in the level of humanity that do not respect any standards of the humanity and defying the peoples throughout the world. The idea of more than 1,000 day on daily basis that witnessing 100 or even more by targeting through delivering the aid that gives the impression that the US-backed contractors that implicitly with Israel is trying to expel the people and do not contribute to deliver the aid that would reflect that the unprofessional manner of delivering or running such a thing. So the increasing number of the killing people by starvation that affirms the malintention of Israel in reaching the forced displacement and creating an environment to expel the inhabitants that is linked to of the lack of any means of life and delivering the aids directly that would help them to be resilient and to stay on hold or to stay in the ground.
Now, how different are the current mediation efforts led by Egypt and Qatar from the past negotiations in terms of their approach or their effectiveness or the goals or the end results that they want to reach?
There was some sort of a very optimistic view by all the observers in reaching solution, and even Witkoff has announced that we are very close to announce an agreement within the past 24. Throughout 28 negotiations, ranging by delivering the aids managed by the United Nations, such as UNRWA, the mission of distributing the aid throughout Gaza, as they are very fully aware of such an operation and exiting the American contractors, and was agreed upon between both sides in the framework of the mediators' pressure and their success in reaching a positive step. The main sticky point that was linked to the Israeli withdrawal, and they were disagreed in only a few meters. There was some sort of flexibility by Hamas with such a context, and all maps being re-modified, presented by Israel. And in the meantime, there was some sort of understanding by the number of hostages and their types between the life sentence, the prisoners. So there was some sort of a breakthrough among such ideas, and the idea of having guarantees regarding the numbers in either between the 10 live hostages and other bodies.
Yes.
But there was some sort of a surprise before the supervisor. The agreement has failed and holding
Now,
Hamas
this is
responsible.
this is what we want to speak about here. The issue is that negotiations were or is on a pause. Now, how far do breaks in ceasefire talks are expected, and how should such pauses be understood or dealt with within the media and the general public?
Absolutely, that would increase the state of frustration, as there was some sort of readiness in reaching an agreement and ending such a movement and a very provocative humanitarian dimensions. But despite such challenges and the state of frustration, the Egyptian state, along with Qatar as a mediator, not to surrender to such a reality and discussion to the American circles in to return once again to upon the agreement within the next week. But naturally, the intentions and not to urge Israel to respond as if there was a real will for Israel would have reached an agreement, as we've seen the scheme of genocidal war to be imposed on the negotiation and ultimately to have Hamas responsible for this. And this will be dealt in the framework of the logic of priorities by delivering the humanitarian aid or reaching a
Yes.
ceasefire.
Yes, but I really want to ask you, sir, about this very particular point. How should the media and the public deal with such breaks in very crucial crucial talks as such?
For the media outlets to show the image in a very credible way. So the idea of having the Palestinian side to be responsible for failing the negotiation isn't inaccurate. So showing the issue through media pressure by covering the real humanitarian crisis on the ground, so naturally will be pressure upon the Israeli communities along with the Israeli administration. So the idea of exchanging the hostages as requested by US and European countries to be an available proposals via media pressure that reflected the public. So the idea of adopting one single idea that Hamas is breaching or sabotaging the agreement throughout the media, this isn't realistic. In order to reach a very disciplined media vision to help into finding a solution, but to have more complexity. But the idea of addressing the matter regionally and internationally that way do not help to build a full public internet to have some sort of a solution.
Clear, Dr. Ahmed, clear, very clear. Media should be so accurate in their dealing with such news, particularly at this very critical time. That was Dr. Ahmed Shahat from Cairo, the political science professor and a specialist in regional and international security. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Qnews.